than my father left, even though he would call himself a conservative. But when I no longer supported the political state of Israel, he called me a bleeding heart liberal, like I was a liberal all of a sudden. Because in his mind, you do not paying tribute of subjection to a foreign nation. You know? And I just had to say this. You see how people will sort of put in a box. They'll try to identify someone as either conservative or liberal, left or right. When you get to talking to people, you find out that there's very few people that are just always in agreement with leftist policies or policies on the right. They're normally on both sides of the spectrum on different issues. So people get mischaracterized a lot in politics. Like someone will automatically assume that you're one way or the other. So they'll say things like, the same people who said this say this, and they'll just sort of blend all the left together or all the right together. There is a saying that anyone who wasn't a socialist when they were young doesn't have a heart, and anyone who's a socialist when they're old doesn't have a brain. And there's some truth to that. There's a lot of misunderstanding. Like some people have said that the left is the party of empathy and the right doesn't have any empathy. This is just totally untrue. The left a lot of times thinks that the conservatives have no empathy for things like, let's say the conservatives were to say, we don't support price controls, wage controls, or EBT. Even though the conservatives, as a demographic, give way more to charity than liberals. Liberals almost don't give to charity. Liberals tend to be very stingy people that aren't going to give to charity, and they assume the rest of the country is like that, and so you need the government to force redistribution of wealth. Whereas the conservatives are normally the ones that are giving to charity. They're the ones doing things. Liberals often have these fake charities, like Bill Gates goes and gives a bunch of black women shots in Kenya to make them infertile and unable to have children, and then he calls it charity for women's health. Or they'll call Jeff Bezos' ex. She'll call donating money to abort babies, women's health care, and they'll say that they're doing charity, but they don't really do charity. You know, that's not really charity. That's not really a good cause. There was some liberal college students raising money to get a kid transgender surgery, and they said they were raising money for a noble cause. There's nothing noble about that cause. It's not charity. And you know, I hear a lot of liberals, they'll complain about the rich, always complaining about the rich, saying the rich are so greedy, they should give more of their wealth away to charity. And then you ask that liberal, you say, what percentage of your income do you give to charity? And it'll be like, none. And then you look at the rich people and they'll be giving 10%, 20%. Even if they're just giving 1 or 2%. They're almost always giving more than the people who are calling them greedy. And then you look and they'll say, well, the rich are always evading taxes. And it'll be said by people who don't even pay taxes. You know, they get tax money back. They get everything they paid in back and some. And they'll say that the rich are greedy. And yeah, there are rich people that are greedy. But I found in life that there is no distinction between rich or poor when it comes to greedy men and women. You have greedy poor people and greedy rich people. You have generous rich people and generous poor people. I don't think either group has a monopoly on it. Unless, I mean, maybe rich people are more generous because they can afford to be more generous. Oh, I got all this wood to unload. I've been making a mess with so much of it. I just got it all cleaned up and in piles out the way. And I'm not about to come in here and make another pile of wood in my way. The boss said I could have, they've got a wood shop. And they cut, we cut wood to build boxes for Tiger Cat. And they sell heavy machinery and stuff. And we get all this scrap wood that just piles up and it's in the way. And so the boss said I can take it to burn it or whatever. He gives it to us. And if we don't take it, he's going to have to load it up on a trailer and just throw it away. Or get it out the way. And so all this, I'm not going to burn. I'm not going to burn it all. I'm on private property. I'm not on the road right now. I don't need a seat belt. I can be on my phone. I'm not on the road in my truck. I'm on my property with a no trespassing sign. And if any more cops want to come out here and trespass on my land and throw trash down or anything, they can be prosecuted for trespass. So I got a pretty good bit of scrap wood, and I can do another. One, I can start me a pile right here. Some of this I could use to build chicken pens, nesting boxes, beef boxes, mulch. That's another thing this stuff can be used for. Like some of this wood I could use for weed suppression. Got some of these particle board, not particle board, hardy board. Just like 3 of them. I'll put these over here to. I'm probably not gonna. I bought this tool here, and I was hoping when I bought this tool, I'd be able to swipe away at the grass. But it's not like how they used to make them. Now they're all made in China. And they say all this stuff about caution, sharp blade. Look at this. I can squeeze on it. It ain't gonna cut me. It's dull as fuck. There ain't no way that's cutting anything. I'm doing it with my left hand with the... See that? I can cut some stuff like this that I could already pull up with my hand. But it don't cut no grass. It ain't no point in messing with it. I don't know if that'll stay up there the whole time. Some bricks have grown up over some of that. I have a bunch of bricks. There's some grass and weeds that's grown up here. Rectangle little bricks here. And between the cracks of the bricks, grass has grown up. I'm gonna pull it. I'm gonna get all the bricks rearranged and all the dirt under it leveled and graded out. Reset the bricks. some of these I'll probably use less time than another one. There's a wasp. I gotta say, I knew that a lot of people on the left, I knew a lot of people on the left was heartless. You know how they champion killing babies and everything. And I knew they were, a lot of them, very vile humans. But I still didn't expect them to react the way they did about Charlie Kirk's death. And I've talked a lot about it, and it might make people think that I was a big fan or a big supporter or agreed with everything he said. And I don't really, when he first come out, I watched a lot of his debates. He made a lot of good points. I was not a supporter of Israel like he was. And Charlie Kirk really was one of them people that believed if you could change the culture, you could change all the problems, really. He thought that, like, he wasn't like they accused him of being alt-right and everything. And me, a Jared Taylor supporter, you know, like I am. Now, they mischaracterized the alt-right a lot, but when it first come out, shit, that's basically what I am. I don't hate different races, but I'm what you call a race realist. I think Watson's a modern day Galileo. He isolated genes. He proved that intelligence was inherited just like anything else. DNA pretty much codes for everything. And so a lot of the people that hate Charlie hate him because they think he holds views like I do. And he really didn't. I mean, you just got to be honest with the man. I always thought he was naive and gullible about it. But he really wasn't a racist. Gotta realize there ain't that many black people in America. It's sometimes 15%, sometimes 12%. It changes year by year. Their abortion rate's about 47%. Almost for every black baby born, there's one aborted. They kill about half their babies, and their population fluctuates of fertile black women. Almost half of them have herpes. It's just insane stats when you go look at it, right? But I'm just getting off topic, right? The point is they're about a little more than 10%, between 10 and 20% of the population, really between like 12 and 15. And so it's not reasonable to expect a greater percentage than that to be pilots. Now, this is something Charlie Kirk probably didn't know. And if he did know, he wouldn't admit it. Only 20% of African Americans have an IQ above 80. And then, you know, of males, they're only 6%. So how in the world? And now Charlie Kirk didn't believe what I just said. He didn't say that. He wasn't a race realist like I am. And I'm not being mean by saying it. It's just the truth, right? How are you going to set a diversity quota and say you got to have more than 12% be pilots and not get lower qualified people? There's no way. It's just the math. He was born on Mother's Day. That's awesome. It's a good present for your mother. But Charlie Kirk, he really said, like me, I think that a lot of culture is an expression of the genes. And more than that, culture is more than that. And I believe the spirit can overcome the body through willpower. It's not like you're just totally bound by your body, but your body is going to have certain impulses based on inherited traits from your ancestors. And so Charlie really wasn't this racist that people paint him out to be. He wasn't even a race realist. He really believed kind of that people were sort of blank slates, that if African Americans didn't listen to the rap music, they'd have the same murder rate, rape rate, and robbery rate as white people. He might be right. I think there'd still be a lot of the same problems with or without it. I think there's still a lot of anger. You know, when I had grandparents, grand and uncles that fought in the Korean War, and when I hear some of the things that were done to POWs, and I hear some of the stories from my own family members, even though none of the Japanese people that are alive today threw babies up and caught them with bayonets, none of them tortured any of my family members and all. I'm over it now, but when I was about in high school, I was still having to kind of get over it. I didn't like to see the spread of Japanese culture in America. Eventually, I jumped on the Pokemon bandwagon, but I was very slow to do it. And like Dragon Ball Z, I didn't even watch that till my 30s, even though it was big to come out when I was a child. I resented Japanese culture spreading in America. I didn't like it. I remembered about these Japanese torturing American soldier POWs, throwing babies up in the air and catching them on their bayonets. And I did not respect or like the Japanese people. But then I realized it was silly, you know? These are not the people that committed all those atrocities. And I moved on and I got over it. But you think about how silly that was for me to feel that way toward Japanese culture just about that. But then you got to imagine, what if you look, you know, with the whole slavery thing, there's a lot of black people that are still mad about it. They still hate white people about it. And I live in a county that's probably about 40% African American, 50% white, the rest Mexican and everything else. And there's plenty of black people that hate white people. I experienced racism from the black lunch ladies at school. They let the black people pick whatever piece of chicken they want and then laugh at the white people if they ask and give you what you didn't ask for. These are different things. You know, there's hate on both sides. But I really don't hate. And most people don't. But I've just never went with the crowd just because the crowd. I've never agreed just because. You know, a lot of kids, they were told superstitious things and they just accepted it. When I was a small child, I didn't accept a superstition just because I was told it. I picked up the praying mantis to see if it was going to spit me in my eye. I picked up spiders because I didn't believe they were going to bite me. And I was right. And I didn't believe breaking a mirror was going to give me bad luck, or crossing the path of a black cat, or walking under a ladder. None of those things made sense to me. I needed a reason to believe. I needed a reason for those things to be connected. I wasn't just going to believe it. And I looked at Watson's study when it come out. It's hard to find it now. The internet has pretty much scrubbed it, buried it. Google's buried it in the algorithm. But Watson had identified several genes connected to nerve function, brain shape, all kind of things. It wasn't like he just pulled the theory out of his ass. He had a good reason to believe that intelligence was inherited just like everything else. And then he gets his Nobel Prize taken away from him. He gets stripped of all of his honors and everything. And he gets called a racist. And I mean, it's the same information as the bell curve. You can go on Google and look, World IQ Map. And all kind of that, they don't pull that down. They don't take away Google's credentials for saying the same thing. It's just not considered polite or nice to say certain truths because there's certain political objectives that require people to believe in lies. You know, during the Soviet Union was able to continue because a lot of people agreed to tell lies. They didn't stand up for the truth because they would be punished for the truth. Yeah, I've never had an unlucky moment from a black cat ever. I tell you, a good thing about a black cat is it's got more stealth at night. You know, it's probably a black cat's probably lucky because it's probably less likely to get ate by an owl. It's probably able to hide in the shadows better. So I'm not here trying to say any kind of negative stuff like that, but this is what I'm saying, right? They're calling Charlie Kirk a racist. And I'm asking, how is Charlie Kirk a racist? You know, I would hear Charlie Kirk defend this idea that everything's socialization, that everything's culture, that everything's nurture and not nature. And I would just think, man, he's naive. But I'd also hear his whole argument out. You know, he wasn't saying, I am saying it, okay? He wasn't saying he's worried. He wasn't saying black people are less able and don't have the same amount of potential to be a pilot. That's not what he was saying. He was just addressing the thing about the sample size. America's a majority white nation. So you've got a lot more white people to pull from to get the best qualified pilots than black people. So if you make, you know, it's 12% of the population, but you really got to only take about 20% of that 12% that's even going to be intellectually anywhere close to being able to be a pilot. Okay, so you take that 20% of that 12%, you don't have a very big pool to pull from. And so if you say, we're going to have, for every white pilot, we're going to have a lesbian pilot, we're going to have a black pilot, we're going to have a Chinese pilot, you're not going to get the best. So if you would see somebody being a pilot of a minority group, you know there's a better chance that they're less qualified. That wasn't Charlie being racist, but there's been a lot of black people on Facebook and everything else that they've argued with me about this airplane comment, about the whole diversity hire thing. And they've said, see, Charlie said this, Charlie's a racist. Charlie Kirk was a racist because he said he would be worried about a black pilot being qualified. He wasn't saying it because he was black. He was saying it because of the diversity quotas. The diversity quotas is what made him worry about a black. If it was a meritocracy where the best man got the job no matter what, and there was a black pilot, Charlie Kirk wouldn't have worried about it. If you take the diversity quotas away, he'd be fine with having a black pilot, because then he would know that the black pilot has a job not because he's black, but because he's a good pilot. Now, me, on the other hand, that's where I part ways with Charlie Kirk. Even if they took away the diversity quotas and I had a black pilot, I would still be worried because I'm a race realist. I ain't like Charlie Kirk. I'd be like, well, these people don't have as much impulse control. These people don't have as much prefrontal cortex cognition. I don't want a black pilot. You know, I'm the guy. You know, I'm the type of guy that they think Charlie Kirk's like me, so they hated him and wanted him dead. I am the kind of guy that thinks that way. And so I'm just defending Charlie. You know, like the left attacks Charlie. And, you know, the left will say Charlie's alt-right. And the conservatives will say, no, Charlie's not alt-right, you know. But here I am the alt-right. And I'm saying, we don't claim him. The alt-right don't claim Charlie. Charlie's not alt-right. You know, not at all. So, but I don't like lies. And I wasn't a big Charlie Kirk fanboy. I'm a Jared Taylor fan. I'm a Ron Paul fan. I'm a little bit of a, you know. So just coming from the alt-right, Charlie's not alt-right at all. But I do think, and the main problem I had with him was he seemed to just support Israel no matter what. But it turned out the man did love truth. And he stood for the truth. And when he found out he was wrong about Israel, he started telling the truth about Israel. But I didn't know he was telling the truth about Israel because as soon as he started, he was dead. And, you know, but I also, even when I disagree with Charlie Kirk over that issue, I wasn't mad at Charlie Kirk for it because I used to be the same way. I was raised a Zionist. I used to believe in supporting Israel no matter what. I used to be that way. I used to have cognitive dissonance. I used to ignore a lot of things. I used to have a lot of bias to where I always took the side of the Jew against the Muslim. I used to be that way. So I understood the kind of thinking, you know. I used to be a very dogmatic, fundamentalist, Bible-believing, Zionist, Christian, whatever, Texas, Georgia type. I don't know what to call it. And it wasn't until I guess I was 30 before I started kind of moving away from that. And really about the time I was 33 is when, and I had plenty of reasons I should have known better. I knew about them being behind communism and Bolshevism. I knew about the Federal Reserve. I knew about Rothschild. I began to know about the genocide. But honestly, back in the day, I just didn't kind of care all that much. I figured, well, the Muslims are trying to blow me up and enslave me too. So let them both fight each other, you know. I didn't really have a lot of sympathy. But as time went on, I guess I began to become more of a humanist. I began to kind of see even patriotism as silly. Like when my dad was in the Air Force and we moved to different schools, people would have a lot of school spirit. They'd have a lot of pride in their school. And I'd been to a lot of schools, and I saw that everybody at every school felt that way. And everybody at every school said their school was the best. And everybody at every school, just about their school wasn't the best. They was just about all the same. For the most part, there were big differences, but not that big of a difference. A public school's a public school pretty much. And so I just thought they was like all shouting and they was expending so much emotional energy. And they're all like, Wheeler County Bulldogs is the best. And I thought, this is silly, really. And also I knew I'd been to better schools on base. I knew this ain't really the best school. But it was a lot longer before I started looking at politics the same kind of way. At the end of the day, really, it mostly matters to just do the right thing, regardless. You got to spend your life on something. You know, Charlie Kirk spent his life defending what he thought was decency. And I mean, it really is. A lot of what he stood for was just being a decent, good person. Honesty, virtue, hard work, self-reliance, not being a leech. You know, and he wasn't for violence whatsoever. He was for just having a discussion and a debate. He was like giving his people who disagreed with him a chance to prove him wrong. He's like, come talk about it, right? Me, though, I've been disillusioned with the whole thing a lot earlier. You know, I've had a lot of debates and arguments and talks with all these people. And I've pretty much come to the conclusion that the whole reason they're on the side of the political spectrum that they're on is they're the type of people that are anti-responsibility. They want all the privilege and no responsibility. They want all the freedom, no responsibility, no duty, no obligation. You know, it's like, they're like, I should just murder my own child because why should I be inconvenienced by my own child? They have no sense of duty. They don't care about broader society. They pretend that what they do doesn't affect nobody else. What other people do doesn't affect them. We're social animals. We live in each other is our environment. And no one's independent. All these people, all these women, it's not really men too much, but all these women that say they're strong and independent, go put them in solitary confinement and figure out how independent they are. They'll literally go insane. You can't even, by your own self, keep your own sanity. You need other people to talk to. No one is independent. That is an illusion. And that is why freedom is also an illusion. You can never truly be free. Let's say you love your parents. Okay, now you can't be free. It's a limiting factor. There's certain things you can and can't do. Say you love your woman. I love Brittany. It limits what I can and can't do. I have certain obligations. Let's say you have children. I mean, some people don't think they have any obligations, but you get the point. I'm saying that love is a slaver, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you can't really be free. There's cause and effect that cannot be escaped. Your actions echo in all eternity. That cannot be escaped. One thing leads to another. There's no... So I don't really look at it in terms of, I think that freedom is just like the bait on a hook to just kind of sort of lure the masses into a trap of putting them on a tax farm and getting their money and them being happy about it because they say they're freer than other people when really they're not. You can't have everything. There's trade-offs. To have one thing, you have to give up something. There was a man last night. He asked me to give him a ride to the fruit stand. I said no to him because saying no to him was saying yes to Brittany. Saying no to him was saying, yes, Brittany, I'm going to spend this day with you. Yes, I'm going to be able to us go to town and get something to eat. If I would have said yes to him, who knows how much time that would have tied up. When I was younger, and kind of when I was older, I guess until I was about 28, I just kind of never liked to tell anyone no. So I'd get off of work, I'd have about 5 people on my phone that messaged me, all asking for rides here, there, and everywhere, favors to do this and that. And all my time would be tied up, waiting on them to leave whatever they were doing, or bringing this person here, that person there. And then the day would be over and I'd have to go to work. And that was my whole life. My whole life was just, I didn't get to do anything for me because I betrayed myself to try to be friends with everyone else. And I had to say no to myself all the time to say yes to everybody else. And I'd feel guilty if I didn't. If somebody asked me for a favor and I said no, I'd feel guilty like I was a bad person and done something wrong. But eventually I learned that, yeah, it's good to love other people, but you also do got to love yourself too. And I don't mean in a conceited, narcissistic, selfish type of way. I don't mean just like some people say self-love and they just mean narcissism. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying Jesus didn't say, don't love yourself and love your neighbor. He said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. There's 2 sides of that. If you hate yourself, now how are you going to love your neighbor as you love yourself? They ain't going to be loving them that good, is it? So you got to, and if you destroy yourself, you can't help nobody else. I couldn't never, see, like when I was still just doing everything for everybody, there's no way I could have bought this land. But when I started doing things for myself, it put me in a position where I could really help people more. But everybody doesn't really deserve your time. But just because they don't deserve it doesn't mean you can't give it to them. I'm not saying that. But a lot of these people, I started thinking, well, all the things I've done for all these people, if I ever need help, they'll be there for me. And then the day comes and you learn the takers are the takers and the givers are the givers. They're not going to help you. And it wasn't that I was helping them so they would help me, but I just sort of thought that they would. And then when I needed help, they got mad at me. How dare you? They were mad at me for even asking. They wanted me to be the person that's always given and them to be the person that's always taken. And so then I learned it's not worth it. It's not worth it to give your life up and live it for everybody else and do everything for everybody all the time. I'm not saying be mean and always say no. You can say no, but I'm just saying everything's trade-offs. So just realize that when you say yes to somebody, you've said no to everybody else, or you've said no to yourself. If you say, yes, I'm going to give you a ride to town, and now they're 10 minutes late. And now when you give them a ride to town, they're taking a lot longer. A lot of times people want to give you gas money, but the money they give you doesn't buy all the gas it'll take you to do the errands for them. Or that's all it gives you. And then it takes up 2, 3, 4 hours of your time. It's normally people that don't have jobs. They got all this time and they just don't understand the value of your time. They don't understand how precious it is, that time between you getting off of work and going to bed, because they've got all the time in the world. They don't have a job. And so they'll think it's all about money. For them, it's about money. For you, it's about time. You don't really need their money so much for the gas because you got a job, but you need your time. And they give you the money for the ride. They give you the gas money for the ride, but then they take 2 or 3 hours of your precious time that you get nothing for. And so I just started telling them no. But I'm gonna do a recap and pretty much say mostly my points is a lot of people taking Charlie Kirk's comments out of context. There's no evidence to support that he supported violence or that he was a racist. He wasn't a racist, and he wasn't alt-right. And then I would say, about me personally, as far as the kind of those race relations are concerned, my views are more in line with Jared Taylor than Charlie Kirk. But I'm still going to defend Charlie Kirk because, I mean, what they're saying about him just isn't true. If they'd have said some of those things about me, it might be true. But it wasn't true about Charlie. I don't even know what, like, I barely even knew this guy. I watched a few videos, and that's not really what impacted me so much. What it's impacted me so much is seeing all the people cheer about him being dead. I'm just absolutely blown away with it. And I don't know why I didn't expect it. These people cheer about killing their own babies, so I should expect them to be vile. I should already know they're vile. I already know they're resentful. I already know that they're greedy. They project. A lot of what they call others is what they are. The left is very intolerant. They're only tolerant of immorality, of wickedness. They tolerate wickedness, but they're very intolerant of anyone who has any kind of moral standard, because they basically want all the pleasure and no responsibility. They want everything free, but somebody else to be enslaved to pay for it. That's why I say about that freedom is an illusion. Let's say you have free health care. Let me tell you how you can have free health care. You bring back slavery and you make doctors slaves and you make them work for free. That's the only way you could have free health care. It's an illusion. Someone has to pay for it. There's no such thing as free. Someone has to pay for it. So it's not really free health care. It's I get enslaved more money gets taken out of my check and given to somebody that didn't earn it. That's what, and then they call that free health care. That's not free health care. There's no free college. I had a brain enough to know not to take out some debt and loan that I can't afford to pay. So I wanted to go to college, but I wasn't about to go into a whole bunch of debt. So I went to a tech school and learned how to do electrical work. I didn't go take out some big interest loan that I couldn't pay back. And you know, most of the college debt, 70% of it is female debt, mostly of things that won't ever turn a dollar. Most of these college degrees these women got was for prestige, so they could say they have a degree. It was in stuff that don't even make any money. And people should have never given them these loans in the first place, but they did. And so they said, we're going to give free college, we're going to pay off the debt. And everyone said, yay, debt cancellation. They need to do debt cancellation. Who do you think paid for that? They just put it on the taxpayer like me. And then they think they're smarter than I am. They're like, we're smarter than you. We went to college. We know a man can turn into a woman. And we're not responsible enough to pay our own debts. And we're going to vote for you to be enslaved to pay our debt. And then you didn't go to college. I went to college. I'm smarter than you. When really, I was smart enough to not be a communist. Smart enough to not take on debts I couldn't pay back. And smart enough to realize that in the age of information, every single thing that they learn that they're paying to learn, I can learn for free on the internet. Often with the very same college professors. The same college professors that people pay to go see their lectures, that people get a degree from. They'll post their lectures on YouTube for free. You don't get accredited, but it's still free. And so let's say I wanted to learn calculus. Let's say I need to know calculus, right? I could learn calculus absolutely free online. So let me ask you, who's smarter? The person that goes online and learns calculus for free, or the person that goes into debt to learn calculus? Who's really smarter? But see, in an age where college is the least prestigious it's ever been, it's the easiest to get in that it's ever been, the quality of information is the lowest it's ever been, It's the most expensive, while at the same time, the information is free online. It's crazy. It's like, you hear about people who pay for OnlyFans accounts and you think, how are they that much of a moron? I'm totally against it, but there's free porn on the internet. I think it's a Jewish weapon and it's part of a psyop and it destroys nations. I'm anti-porn, but I'm just saying, porn is free on the internet. How dumb do you have to be to pay for it? And it's the same thing with college at this point. It's become a scam. It's not like there's no other way to learn. Everything's on books. You got to meet all the intellectuals at one spot where the books are. It's not like that anymore. We have the internet. Information is free. You're paying the most you could possibly pay for information at a time that all the information is free at your fingertips. You got to be a special kind of fool to go in debt for that. But they are, and they're not even that foolish. They got the political power to just vote to take it out of my check. So I remember when they were talking about it and discussing it, I didn't like it at all. I mean, that's a terrible idea. And then this woman who thought she was smart because she put some glasses on, but she didn't even buy them. I bought them for her. But anyway, she thought she was smart and she thought that I was just heartless because all these people need help paying back their loans, right? But it's not that I'm heartless. I'm more forward thinking than she is. I can see into the future more than she can. People respond to incentives, positive or negative incentives. It's a bad idea to pay people to be losers. And that's what we're doing. This is the whole reason we're going downhill as a country is we're paying people to fail. We're paying people to be losers. You're like, go look at me, like me, for instance, right? I don't take any government assistance whatsoever. I go to work. I work a low-paying job. I work in construction. If I need extra food, I hunt, fish, farm. I pay all my bills. I'm not a leech on nobody, right? And you go look at my refrigerator and look at what I got in my refrigerator, and then go look at the refrigerators of people that ain't never worked a job, ever. They didn't take any consideration in what kind of future they were leaving for their children. They just had sex with whoever, whenever, whatever. And now they living off food stamps, living off government assistance. And then their refrigerator is full of food. They got so much food stamps. They got so much stuff. And then they'll say, and basically they are enslaving other people. It's not just the rich. It's the poor masses that are doing this, that are bringing freedom away. You have a tyranny of the weak. You have a whole bunch of losers. And they don't have to be losers. They choose to be losers. They choose to be weak. They got the potential to be winners, but they choose to be losers. Like, there's people in this county and the surrounding counties, grown men about to be 50 and 40 years old that have never worked a job in their entire life. And they have had food in their stomach by EBT every single day. That's why they didn't go get a job. So then when I say, we need to get rid of this, they say, you have no compassion. You have no heart. You don't care about the poor. No, that's not true. I'm not about banning charity. If you want to give. If I give to charity. I've given to feed starving children and stuff. But it's different to force people at a gun barrel to say, look, I'm taking this out your check. If you don't pay these taxes, you're going to prison. We're taking your money and we're giving it to this guy because he's got less than you. Well, why does he have less? Because some people have less because let's say their house burnt down or there was a flood or something happened. Sometimes just fate and chance happens and something bad happens and it's not your fault. But then some of these people are poor because they've never worked a job in their life. They've never contributed. They've been a leech their entire life. They don't deserve to have as much as I do. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve to eat. They're just being a leech and a parasite. It'd be better if they were gone. They don't deserve it. And so people go ahead and they assume that if somebody's poor, it's because of some evil that the rich have done. The rich stole it from them or they'd have it. And people don't realize the sad truth is people are not equal. Everybody's not just as good as everybody else. A lot of times I'll hear people say that. They'll say, nobody's better than anybody else. And then they'll change their mind when I ask them this question. Are you better than a child molester? It's these egalitarianism is nonsense. It's not based in nature. It's nowhere to be seen. It's not happening nowhere except in people's imagination. And it's to shore up people's insecurities. People want to not put in work to be as good as someone else, but they don't like the that's never worked a job in his life is just as good as Charlie Kirk, or just as good as whoever invented the air conditioner. You know, and it's just not true. It might make people feel better, but it's not true. In long term, the pain, like they say, the truth hurts. The truth only hurts temporarily, and then it actually helps. It's like how surgery can be painful, but then heal you. But the lie will hurt you forever. The lie will have you making bad decisions forever. The lie will have long-term consequences that'll catch up with you. And a lot of the lies that our culture and society are founded on are starting to catch up. It worked when you had everybody like you, when everybody had the same thoughts, when everybody believed in having a reasonable discussion and debate, when everybody believed in hard work and not being a leech, when everybody pretty much feared God and consequences for their morality. When America first started, there was a lot of cohesion. There was a lot of people on the same page about things, that agreed about things. But when you bring people into the system that don't play by your rules, it's going to break the whole thing. When you bring in people, for instance, both in the Jewish religion and the Islamic religion, it is okay to lie to the non-believers to advance the religion. So, for instance, the Talmud says that all non-Jews only exist to be slaves to the Jews. And that if a Jew tells a non-Jew what's in the Talmud, he's to be put to death. And the Talmud also says it's okay for Jews to lie about it, right? So, and you got Muslims that come into the country and they want to destroy the courts and bring in Sharia law. Their religion is not just a religion, it's a political system that has regulation for every single aspect of life. So let's say you believe in freedom and voting and democracy, but then you're letting people vote who believe not in freedom, but that you're supposed to be their slave. How's that going to work out? How's it going to work out if you believe in do not steal, but they believe it's okay to steal? And you're just blind to it. You just automatically assume everybody's going to treat everybody the same way. What happens when you got a bunch of altruistic people? Altruism, I can't pronounce it well, but you know what I'm talking about. Like you do things that ain't necessarily going to help you, but your default position is if you can help somebody, you help them. You know, you share with people. If you've got that type of culture, that works so long as everybody does that. But if you have somebody else whose whole culture is being a parasite, being an altruistic society puts you at risk. It makes you the perfect host for a parasite. And if you're going to get screwed. And the problem is there's a lot of people thinking that everybody thinks like they do when they don't. Or they're thinking everybody has the same morals when they don't. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not a Catholic. I wasn't an Israel supporter. And I don't want... There's a lot of things that I'm not on the same page with Charlie Kirk. Just the reason I bring it up is because it's really shocking to me how many people celebrated his death. That's what really bothers me. Because he was a nice guy, really. He wasn't really that controversial. Like anything, if he's controversial, then a lot of people I know, they would... Charlie was harmless. Charlie was harmless. In a lot of ways, he was naive, almost like a child. He did start to wake up and think for himself there at the end, but then he got killed. You know, he started to realize maybe the media's up. What's going on in Gaza? But there are things he thought. Anyway, it's not like I'm a heel I'm trying to die on one way or another, but I really do believe that he didn't deserve to die. And it is a vile thing that people would celebrate it and act like some sort of justice was done by assassinating him. It's totally insane. You know, more babies are aborted than people have died in all of the wars combined. 1 out of 3 American women is killing her own child. And y'all think Charlotte? This is insane. I'm about to go in here and I don't know. It's not really time. I stopped by here because I'm 58. It's 6 o'clock. I forgot if Brittany gets off work at 7 or when she gets off work. Oh, there's Mama. I'm about to get off.